What's up, guys? It's Ethan Cosby here, and welcome back to episode 4 of Read and React. As a reminder for these, if you don't remember how these Read and React works, how it operates, I'm going to be covering different sources of information and how they handle a common general topic, and I'll give my kind of review of how well these sources of information handle this same topic, and also be making connections for these pieces of information. As a refresher, there are three kinds of connections I can make. There is text itself, where I will correlate what the information I found in a book to a personal experience of mine. The second kind of connection is text is text, as pretty self-explanatory. I'll be kind of comparing and contrasting the different texts with each other and doing some correlation between. And the third kind of connection I can do is text to world, where I will connect the information found in these texts or sources to something outside of my experience and outside of the classroom, more into like kind of more general, broader topics. Okay, so let's go over the kinds of information or sources we'll be using today. We be going over chapter 6 of Wasley. Then we'll be covering chapter 3 of Spires. Then we will be going over some resources that was given to us via our Canvas modules. Okay, so first one to start off, let's start with chapter 6 of Wasley, and what this chapter kind of hammers in about is how to properly teach students how to argue. And what it means by arguing is basically teaching them how to properly support their evidence and claims, whatever kind of uh situation they're in, where they need to use evidence and need to back up whatever they're saying, or they need to refute a topic or opposing viewpoint that they're countering with. And what this chapter does, what I quite like, is that it gives not only strategies a teacher can use to help students acquire these skills, but they also give the also give a lot of like graphic organizers are very helpful because these graphic organizers have like sentence starters almost or phrases that a student needs to know in order to properly argue with whatever they need to argue about. And this book also covers how to argue differently depending on what discipline of literacies you're on and what kind of mindset you need to have. For example, for social studies, if you're arguing in that area, you may need to use some maybe real life events to help support your case. If you're in the science field, you may need to, and you're doing some type of experiment and you want to make a claim about your experiment or you're writing a paper about it, you obviously need to show the results or data that you got from experience to support whatever you're claiming. So, in terms of connection for chapter 6 of Wasley, let's do a text itself. Now, as a student that's been a student for like almost all my life, and also having the experience of being able to teach students, you're gonna have to know how to like properly argue. Not like, not what I mean by arguing where you're just kind of yelling at a person, but how to properly have a good debate or a conversation with someone who may have different ideas or opposing ideas and viewpoints as you. It can be a great way for you and a person to interact with each other and really gain a better understanding of a potential opposing side on a certain belief that you may have. And not only does this correlate to in an education setting, this can be also be utilized outside of a school setting. It can be used in different careers, where it'd be like if you want to go into politics, speaking, or if you're just having a conversation with a friend about a certain topic that you two may not have see eye to eye about. Having the skills and how to properly argue slash debate is a really nice skill to have, and I like how this chapter 6 does a great job on how to properly do it and how to adapt how you argue with the different disciplinary literacies. Now, um, let's move on to chapter 3, Aspires. What chapter 3 focuses on is closed reading. And if you don't know what closed reading is, it is the idea of that you are thorough when you read. And it can be also seen as more of an analyzation skill. But closed reading is all about you know the author, you know potential context, you analyze the entire meaning of the text that you're focusing on. And this chapter also covers how to do different kinds of closed reading depending on your subject area. And that's really important because when you're closed reading, you need to have a different mindset to find what is important depending on your subject area. For example, when it comes to social studies, you'll be probably focusing on potential events dates, or key figures in order to properly close read. While in, let's say you're in a math or science area, you need to be focusing on data and like more like theoretical concepts and formulas and how to probably know it to to make sure you're properly close reading. Now, in terms of connection for Chapter 3 Aspires, well, I will go for a text-to-text connection. And obviously, as previously mentioned with Bosley, these two go hand in hand with concepts. Honestly, you'll be using the close reading methods and strategies that are taught in Chapter 3 into the argument side that was taught and focused about in Chapter 6. So the skills that are taught in Chapter 3 can be utilized heavily in Chapter 6. So let's move on to our third piece of source of information, which is the ones that we're given to our Canvas modules. And now, more specifically, I'm going to be focusing on a certain source of information, which is actually in the form of a video. And this video is about a seventh grade teacher called Miss Gilbert. And what this video showcases her actually utilizing these concepts into actual practice. And when you actually watch the video, she will show the students different kinds of text that can be utilized to teach a student. Now, as a reminder, when I say text, text is not just related to, or no, sorry, not restricted to just words, but text is meaning any kinds of media that can convey a form of communication. For example, text can mean reading, letters. Text can be pictures, audios, videos, graphic organizers, and so on. And in this video, Miss Gilbert does such a great job utilizing the different forms of text that are in their textbooks, such as non fictional stories, graphic organizers, cartoons, and even certain vocab terminology that's very unique to the science topics they're learning about as a way to help enhance their learning experience. What I found really interesting in how she handled the terminology part, she made the students really focus on that term. And what it does, as she explains, when you're giving attention to these different forms of text, it kind of ingrains into the student as kind of like a reminder or something they can visualize or correlate whenever if they're ever tested on about a similar subject. For example, let's say you associate this topic of say photosynthesis with this flower diagram that your teacher taught you and they want you to know by heart. And whenever you're taking a test about photosynthesis, the student will then recall about that kind of like flower diagram they were taught from the teacher. And what I like about this video is it actually showcases a demonstration to maybe a teacher like myself who doesn't have that much experience in teaching on how to properly utilize the concepts that are showed in the books and kind of how to properly choose the right text or how to even probably use the right text depending on your teaching instruction. And for connection, as is pretty obvious, I'll make another text-to-text connection because all the things that Miss Gilbert did in the video, it utilizes all the concepts and strategies in both Bosley and Spires. So, with that being said, let's give a review. Now, in terms of when it comes to the concept and topic of choosing the right text for your discipline literacies, I would recommend viewing and consuming all three sources of information. I would personally recommend starting off with Chapter 6 of Bosley because it kind of breaks it down how a really key feature that would be used a lot in students, which is the argument side. And it also gives you a lot of graphic organizers and visuals to not only help students to learn how to argue, but what kind of phrases and mindsets they need to have when arguing in a classroom setting. Secondly, I would go with Spires as the next thing to look at because closed reading is a good skill to have, especially when it comes to any type of subject area. And the analyzation skill set is also very important even outside of the classroom. And lastly, I would watch the video less. Even though I personally think it's like the best one in terms of showcasing the topic, you need to have a little bit of background information that can be consumed, that can be achieved by these two chapters if you don't want to feel completely lost when watching the video. And that Miss Gilbert video also does a great job at like actually putting these concepts, theories, and tactics into actual practice. And actually, she actually makes it look that these strategies, mindsets, and tactics work in an actual classroom setting, and it'll help eventually make you a better teacher if you can master these strategies that are mentioned in these chapters and be able to replicate the same execution that Ms. Gilbert did in the video. So yeah, those are my thoughts for these three sources of information for this week, and that will be it for Reading React number 4. And this is Ethan Cosway. Hope you have guys a good night. Bye.